welcome to the 314th edition of the Legal Motion College Football Podcast on the Believe Network. Once again, I'm Matt Perkins, and joining me, just a flag route across the Harpeth River from me here in the Music City, it's our own offensive coordinator, the coach, Corey Burton.
What's up, guys? It's great to be here. This one, like to steal a line from your co-host on Believe in Badgers, this one's especially a holiday. This one's like Christmas in August. So we're talking SEC and Sun Belt. So I'm very excited.
Yes, well, we can't get started without the third amigo in the second city, a man who is experiencing some SEC weather up in Chicago, Illinois. It's the third amigo in the second city, our intrepid blogger from Big Ten and Counting, Josh Cook.
Good time.
Very good times.
Very good times indeed. All right. Well, like Coach mentioned, it is time for our SEC and Sun Belt preview, the last of our previews, especially right here ahead of the Week 0 games, including an SEC game in Vanderbilt taking on Hawaii here in Nashville. Coach and I will be at that game. But before we get into it, want to remind you guys that we are presented by betonline.ag, where they continue to be your number one source for all of your online sports wagering needs. You name it, they've got it over there at BetOnline. With football season officially here, you can get your last minute futures bets in. You can get all the Week 0 action over there at betonline.ag. MLB pennant races are in full swing. My coach and me are big old Braves fans, and they are running away with it, and we love to see it. Can't get enough of that, but no matter what your sport is, no matter what your game is, they've got it over there at betonline.ag. Head on over to the website or use your mobile device today to sign up and receive a 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit with our promo code BELIEVE. That's BLEAV. BetOnline, where the game starts. Like we've been doing with the rest of our previews, Josh, we're going to hand the reins over to you and let you roll. So let's just hop right into it.
Let's do it. All right. So to summarize, the SEC last year was all about coaches' dogs. They went undefeated. They won the SEC. They obviously won the Natty. But underneath Georgia was a really unique set of stories. You had Tennessee win 11 games. That's their best season since 2007 when they had 10 wins. South Carolina hit that 9-win plateau. They ended the year ranked.
They destroyed Tennessee.
Yeah. LSU was all about family, and they made the SEC title game, surprisingly.
Family.
Yeah, you had the late, great Mike Leach. He went out with a magical 9-win season. The Bulldogs were also ranked in the top 25 before his untimely and, quite honestly, gut-wrenching passing. You had Alabama surprisingly look human. They were still a really good team, but they did not look like a demigod last year. So my personal 5 questions for this league, starting, Coach, with your dogs, do they three-peat?
That's the story. I mean, I if you listen to y'all's appearance on the Believe in Georgia Dogs podcast, which new episode is available right now. Georgia does. I think they're poised for it, man. It's set up pretty well for them.
All right, my second question: those Crimson Tide, can Alabama return to that Ubermensch level where they are just the scariest thing you've ever seen? Someone sounded like they wanted to chime in.
I think we'll talk about their quarterback.
We'll talk about that. We'll
talk about that later. There's a lot to unpack here with Alabama.
There is a lot to unpack. Third question for me: Tennessee, awesome season last year. Hard to follow that up. I'm curious how they avoid being a one-hit wonder.
I'm going to tell you why, because you're going to force me to say something nice, and well, I got a few nice things to say about Tennessee.
Nice. Number 4, Jimbo. Does he make it to the end of the year?
Oh Lord.
And then
he has a talented roster, but
he's done a great job of stacking the coaching staff with even more toxic people than himself under him. So if they fire him, they've got even worse options.
Perfect. And number 5, it just remains baffling. Just it's rare to have such a
they got
beloved
a
figure to have a sudden death.
Brutal schedule.
But what does Mississippi State look like here after Mike Leach's passing?
It's a brutal schedule, I can tell you that.
So we're going to start with the East, and I'm not even going to talk about the Bulldogs. Coach, I'm going to let you have the floor. Matt, how about you set a timer for 5 minutes, and then when he hits that, we'll just shut off his mic and keep the show going.
Well, I was going to say, you could listen to our, I would say this is a great time to tell folks that you should tune into the Believe in Georgia Dogs podcast.
Yeah. We'll link it right here in the description.
We will link it right here in the description because we talk about that. We pepper Coach with a lot of questions
about what's
going to happen this year. So let's use that as our official UGA preview.
Oh, okay.
I will summarize what we talked about. So since we posted that episode, Carson Beck has officially became quarterback one.
Mm-hmm.
That's good, not surprising, but it's good to actually just have the officialness set so that you no longer have to answer that question. Unfortunately, I talked about Branson Robinson. He has torn his patella tendon, and so he's out for the season.
Talented running back.
Very talented running back, was probably going to take over lead back duties, but thankfully Andrew Paul, not Aaron Paul, Andrew Paul has emerged as somebody that can contribute very, very soon, and he's going to have to. He's going to join Kendall Milton and Dejon Edwards to create that third running back in the rotation. Kendall Milton battling some soft tissue injuries, hamstrings, groin, stuff like that, and then Dejon Edwards is slowly making his way back. Everything else you guys kind of pepper me with. I didn't really talk much about the DBs. But it's going to be a super, super talented group. And I'm really looking forward to another freshman, Matt, that has really kind of come on in camp this last scrimmage after we recorded last week is Raylan Wilson, inside linebacker. I think he's going to get a lot of time. Samuel Impemba, Gabe Harris, and Damon Wilson all showing out as freshmen at the outside linebacker position on defense. And Josh, unfortunately, the star of Georgia Matters, Jared Zirkle, he might be losing footing in the kicker battle.
Oh boy, my guy
to Peyton Woodring.
Oof, Woodring sounds like a skin condition.
It does sound like it sounds like a skin condition. Yes, it sounds like something you would see for an ad for ointment for on like. When you're watching,
I was gonna say, well, Zirkle sounds like the noise that you make when you see that you have wood ring.
I think you just gave. I think you gave him a great nickname. He should just go by the ointment.
The ointment. Zirkle should go by just Zirkle or
Zirkle gets
Jared Zirkel. There you go.
Zirkel.
All right.
So if you want to hear the rest of the details, tune into Believe in Georgia Dogs. Israel's back from illness, so he was back last night. So we got a fresh episode today, and of course you can go back and
he texted me
go down the description.
He texted me that was the greatest podcast he's ever listened to.
There you go. That's great. That's a good plug. So yes, there you go.
Yeah. All right. So second, I got to be honest. When I was making these rankings, I was a little surprised to find myself doing this. But I put Kentucky second. And the reason for it is as bad as their offense was last year, and it was awful last year, they made the change that my Hawkeyes didn't. They got rid of that offensive coordinator. They brought back Liam Cohen. He oversaw things back in 2021 when they won 10 games. Their defense was outstanding last year, should be good again, thanks to that linebacker group. Linebacker group is up there, one of the best in the whole nation. Matt, they added your guy. They added Devin Leary from NC State.
Yep.
How much love should we give the Kroger Cats?
I think that you mentioned, first of all, calling them the Kroger Cats is, I think we're starting to call them that from here on out. The Kroger, even more important than the Devin Leary edition, which is huge, is the aforementioned edition of Liam Cohen. Liam Cohen is a phenomenal OC and led them a couple of years ago to some of the best offenses in the country. We saw how much Will Levis regressed without him. And Will Levis started eating too much mayonnaise in the process. But
he was trying to look like Jerry Lorenzen.
And I think that just shows you how good Liam Cohen is.
Exactly. And
I mean,
Leary, for my money, is, I mean, Levis had like a lot of the physical tools that people like. He's big, he's strong, he's fast, etc. But he would
very accurate,
not super accurate, and
not a great decision maker apparently.
I think Devin Leary exceeds in all the places that Will Levis comes up short. Much better accuracy, much better leader in the locker room, much better just overall in decision making. And
he carried NC State, by the way.
Oh, he completely carried NC State, and he battled through injuries. And I think that this is a bit of a bold choice. I think sort of the chalk pick here for second in the East is Tennessee, but I do like your pick here, Josh, of Kentucky simply because of Liam Cohen. They at this point, coach, pretty much always have a strong offensive line up there at Kentucky. Year in and year out, you can rely on them to be a top 5 offensive line in the SEC, which is really saying something.
Yeah, they're always solid up front, and I think they've kind of built a culture up there with the run game. They have actually they hit the transfer portal pretty hard too, and so before I get into that though, I mean it's when you look at I want to touch on Devin Leary transferring, and I think they won the quarterback sweepstakes right there. I mean I think he was the most talented besides Sam Hartman, the most talented quarterback to transfer in this transfer cycle. And I think he ended up in a better situation than Sam Hartman did because I think Liam Cohen shows he can figure out, he can find even the littlest of details of what your quarterback is good at and what your offense is good at and build on that. And that's what he did a great job of. So, so the run game is Ray Davis, man, and they just continue to have backs. Chris Rodriguez left, and so Ray Davis comes in, transfer from Vanderbilt. Juton McClain also as well, and so I'm excited about this run game. They have Barryon Brown, who we thought he was going to transfer. Love him. At the receiving core. I mean, they're going to be explosive. And I think Liam Cohen loves screens, loves the screen game. And I think he's going to get Barryon Brown. And Barryon Brown is one of the fastest guys in the SEC. So they're going to get him involved in the screen game, and they're going to do some things. Now, whether they finish second in the East, I'm not sure I'm quite with you there, Josh. I think it's going to be interesting, but I'm not quite there yet.
Yeah, well, let's talk about those Volunteers. I've got them third. I think Tennessee and Kentucky just, for me, they're really, really close. Tennessee obviously has a lot of talent and skill back, but for me, it was hard to overlook all those players they lost in the skill position group, including their quarterback, Hendon Hooker, who was so dynamic last year. Coach, you alluded to it earlier. We all know you hate the Volunteers, but I'm forcing you to say Tennessee. Something nice about your nemesis.
Going to this is going to kill me. Okay. But I'm going to say something nice. Okay. So they Josh Heupel, man, they hit a home run there with that hire. I think he's about to prove that he is not a one-year wonder here. I think he's building something with this team. I mean, you saw it kind of in his first year. His offense exploded even more in year 2. With Hendon Hooker. Now he comes in again. We'll kind of see what he's made of this year because he doesn't have Cedric Tillman, who's killing it with the Browns. He doesn't have Jalen Hyatt, who is probably the fastest rookie in the NFL. So he's going to have to lean on Brew McCoy, who had 52 catches there, Ramel Keaton, and Squirrel White as a slot guy. So he's got some explosive receivers, probably not as heralded as the other guys that just left, but they're going to be good enough up front. They're going to be solid, and their top back, Jalen Wright, is coming back. Jabari Small is back. Dylan Sampson is going to get in the rotation there. So they have 3 really good solid backs. Defensively, I mean, I can't shake the 63 burger they gave up to South Carolina. The 49 points they gave up against Alabama. Really, their defense can only go up. They got to be better in pass rush. Linebacking core's got to be better. And I think some of that has to do with just the fact that the offense is just so explosive. Their defense is on the field for a lot of plays. And so they've got their work cut out for them defensively a little bit. But fun fact, did you know that Joe Milton can throw a tennis ball 90 yards?
Yes, because they showed us that on ESPN like 1,000 different times.
Yeah.
That helps you in football. How?
Because you didn't know that when the game is a tie and they go to overtime, they've now decided to change the rules, and whoever can throw the tennis ball the furthest is now how they decide the tiebreaker. At the
I forgot that rule.
Very useful for them and the Bills, Josh Allen.
Also with Joe Milton, if you need him to throw the ball 40 yards, he will definitely throw it 40 yards. If you need him to throw the ball 20 yards, he will definitely throw it 40 yards.
Nice. So, I said to say something nice about your nemesis, and you ended.
He said he's complimenting the strength of his arm.
Complimenting his arm strength. I didn't say anything about his accuracy. I didn't mention that. But obviously, their big game is obviously Alabama again, Georgia, and Florida. Those are 3 biggest games. Again, they host Georgia, which that's a tricky game for Georgia. But I think Georgia's depth will maybe win out in that. So there you go.
There we go.
Vols, baby, Vols.
Well, let's talk about a team.
WLS Vols.
Well, let's talk about a team that I don't think.
Paul, first time, long time, Paul.
Well, let's talk about a team that I don't think has the depth that you just alluded to with Tennessee and Georgia. That is South Carolina. I got them 4th. Beamer's done an awesome job. This team has routinely been punching above their weight class. Spencer Rattler looked pretty good for stretches last season. Was still a little up and down, but
that's just him at this point.
But yeah, I mean that's just kind of him.
He is what he is.
Yeah. My problem with USC though is when you kind of pick apart their roster and get in the details.
They also play in the Pac-12. Oh, wait, different USC.
No, Big Ten.
Yeah, Big Ten
next year.
But yeah, when you pick apart South Carolina, they're just not as deep as Tennessee is, and their defense is nowhere near Kentucky's level. And in fact, South Carolina was 13th in the league against the run last year. Perko over on the aforementioned Believe in Georgia pod that we did with Coach, you basically said that the Gamecocks were too much sizzle and not enough steak for your liking. What do you need to see them do to change your thinking on that?
Have an offensive line that can consistently block. And I mean, to me, it really comes down to their line play, especially on the offensive line. Like I mentioned, I think that remains their biggest issue. On the defensive side of the ball, they are, I think, a little bit flimsy and a little bit thin, especially, again, along the line. And I think that it's, for them, they've got, Rattler is talented enough when he can keep his head screwed on straight. They have enough talent to compete at the skill positions. No one's going to blow you away or wow you, but no one is going to go out there looking like they are an FCS player, right? Like they have the talent, the skill possessions, maybe not the depth, but I don't think that they have the talent or the depth at either line to be a contender toward, I think that the East is interesting because you have sort of 3 tiers, right? You've got Georgia, and then I think you have the second tier of Kentucky, Tennessee, South Carolina. And until they get the depth at in the bigs, in the offensive and defensive linemen on either side of the ball, they're not going to be able to push Georgia Georgia every year. And yes, they beat Tennessee last year, but I don't think until they get the depth along the line, they're going to be able to compete year in and year out with those top teams in the league. And so for the time being, like what do I need to see, Josh? I need to see offensive line play that is up to SEC standards.
Yeah. And consistent.
Yeah.
All right. In the 5 hole. Well, I did it, gentlemen. I put Vanderbilt. And I'm sort of kidding, but I'm sort of not. I actually don't think Vandy is like the 5th best team in the division in terms of like being a complete sum of their parts. But Missouri and Florida have such glaring issues that I'm just like rooting for Vandy to get to a bowl and finish Florida 5th.
Last year.
Like I'm willing Vandy
You're
into
manifesting it, Josh.
yeah, I'm
You were
manifesting it.
manifesting
Yeah.
Vanderbilt.
Is
Um,
this year's David Beatty, Kansas,
no, it's just
coming out of the
Missouri,
rubble?
Missouri and Florida are just they got such holes that I
They're
can't get
bad.
past. But
They're bad.
if Vanderbilt's going to improve at all, they cannot be dead last in defense again, though.
Yeah.
Coach, their quarterback AJ Swan, he played fairly well as a freshman quarterback in the SEC last year. What kind of growth are you hoping to see in his game?
I'm just hoping to see he has more command of the offense. I'm hoping to see that he can play. You start to see the growth down the stretch of the season, especially when they played Kentucky and Florida. You saw him very decisive in the pocket, getting rid of the ball, looked like he knew where he wanted to go, looked like the game had slowed down for him. So it's a matter of him being able to check into good plays at the line, getting his protection set right, and just kind of understanding the nuances of playing the quarterback position. Whereas, he can look, getting to where it's second nature to be able to look off a safety and rip it back across the field, things like that. So I'm excited for AJ Swan. I think he can do that. I think having some consistency and continuity with the system will certainly help. So go Doors.
And I think I'm just going to jump really quickly on top of that. Having a true number one receiver in Will Shepherd again,
Yeah.
like having that same true number one receiver who is like a legit number one receiver in the SEC is huge.
All right. Heading on down to, believe it or not, I've got Missouri. And the reason for this is they very quietly had a strong defense last year. They welcomed back 8 starters from that unit. I could see them being a little bit like Kentucky last year, where they pick up some wins with that defense. They get to a bowl, even though they're inept on offense. Which brings me to their coach. Gents, where do we stand on old Eli? Do you think he's actually
He's
building
treading water.
something?
He's surviving, not
Yeah.
thriving right now. He's in survival mode.
So-
I think losing Dominic Lovett, that was a key second piece to Luther Burden. I think Luther Burden can't do it all on his own. He can't seem to find a quarterback. I mean, Brady Cook's good, and at times
adequate.
He's good, adequate. I kind of like that. He's okay. Yeah, he's adequate. And at times he looked like he was a good quarterback. I think Georgia certainly made him look like he was a good quarterback in that game, which is false hope. But I just don't really believe in this Missouri team. I think at some point the clock's going to run on Eli, and it's going to be. I don't know, man. I just think he's treading water, and I just don't think they have enough pieces. I think they're going to be too inept on offense to. I think they're going to squander having a great defense.
Matt, sounds like you're feeling the same.
Yeah, pretty much. I think he's doing well in the recruiting trail right now. I will say Mizzou's recruiting has picked up, last season and this season. Now, obviously, that's not going to translate to the field for a year or two, but you see them getting some big name piece. I mean, Luther Burden was a 5-star out of high school. They just picked up one of the top defensive linemen in the nation, Williams Nwaneri, who is an in-state kid for them, but I think he's ranked the number 3 player in the country for the 2024 class by Rivals. If they're able to hang on to him, some of these other guys, like they have been picking up some really, really impressive pieces on the trail. But again, you wonder if they don't see those results in the field, well, those kids get the chance to play for Drink, and then if they don't, are they really going to stick around?
This is a make or break year for Drink.
Yeah, in a lot of ways it is.
Yeah. So.
All right. Well, this will bring a smile to Coach's face, but I put Florida 7th in the conference or the division, excuse me. And the reason is their announced starting quarterback is Graham Mertz.
Yes, it is.
Matt, he's not going to finish the season.
Matt picked Mertz apart, and Coach, you get to set the timer. We're giving Matt 5 minutes, and then we're killing his microphone.
Okay, so
right, Matt, you got 5 minutes.
Let me play anti-Matt devil's advocate first. The system that Graham Mertz ran at Wisconsin was Paul Chryst, old school, pro style, under center, play action, let the play develop, which is the exact opposite of what he played in high school. If you look at everything he did in high school, he was in the shotgun for every single snap. Now, what he's going to
Yeah,
be asked,
Kansas high school is real impressive too.
I mean, that's neither here nor there. You saw him in the high school All-American game be the MVP. So, which, take that for what it's worth. And you saw there were times at Wisconsin where he was electric. That first game against Illinois, where he went 20 for 21.
One game.
Nobody knew who he was.
Put up 5 touchdowns on Northwestern last year, which given it was a Northwestern team that didn't win a single game on American soil last year. Nonetheless, still put up 5 touchdowns against them. But the problem with Graham Mertz was 2 things: was decision making, and
kind of a big piece of playing that position.
Yeah, a big piece. And he didn't trust. He played actually behind some of the worst offensive lines that the Wisconsin's had in the past 30 years. And that's a problem because Florida's offensive line is kind of crap too. Florida's offensive line is competing with South Carolina, and not in a good way. And it is, especially with Napier, like he uses a fair bit of pistol. He uses some other sets that if I worry that he is going to ask Graham Mertz to make a lot of decisions. And I think, we saw how up and down Florida was with a top 5 NFL draft pick at quarterback last year, and Anthony Richardson. Graham Mertz is not a top 5 pick.
Who's he throwing to?
Well, that's another question because
Pearsall,
because they lost.
That's their number one.
They don't have Justin Shorter anymore. Like they've got Ricky Pearsall, and I don't know who else.
That's a problem.
The offense is going to be bad. Like the
offense is going to be
putrid.
It's bad offensive line, no weapons. And a system that I'm trying to figure out.
I think like their entire offense is going to be Trevor Etienne.
That ain't gonna last.
No, it's not. It's not because he's not his brother.
That ain't gonna last. Yeah.
So I think it's going to be a long season in Gainesville.
You guys are making my Vanderbilt pick feel very good. I'm enjoying it.
I mean, I just Dan Mullen screwed him. Honestly.
Yeah.
Dan Mullen. Yeah. I mean, Napier has been recruiting a little bit better. Kind of like Drinkowitz.
Yeah, Nape's 24 class is looking really good, led by quarterback DJ Lagway, who's one of the top 5-star quarterback, one of the top in the country.
And I think Napier has a little bit more leeway than possibly Drinkwitz. So I think he's going to have a chance.
I don't know, man. Have you seen the fans that inhabit Gainesville? I don't know if he goes 4-8 this year, which I think is very possible. It wouldn't shock me.
I don't think they fire him.
No.
I think they give him one more year. I think he has to go like 1 for or 2 for them to fire him. I think they have to look at like an absolute utter disaster.
Yeah.
Like beyond I think they have to foobar the season.
Well, and it looks like they might catch a break because it looks like Cam Rising's going to be out for Utah in that opener.
Yeah, I mean they win if they win the opener and can do it on the road and somewhat in decisive fashion, then there's going to be a lot of positivity around that program.
Yeah.
And so I just don't think his leash is as short as Drinkwitz's.
Yeah. No, and it's going to be fun. It's a Thursday night game in Utah. Is going to be an interesting one.
Yes. We'll make some picks next week.
Yes, we will.
Unless y'all want to make some this week.
No. Not going to have time for that this week.
Yeah. Let's jump over to the West then. So
take Vandy minus 17.5.
The West, basically you have everyone looking at LSU and Alabama, kind of a 1A, 1B situation. People are splitting hairs. For me, I came down on the LSU side for really the simple reason of quarterback play. LSU has a set deal with Jaden Daniels, and Alabama still kind of feels a little TBD there at that position. Coach, you're the resident SEC guru. Who do you have winning the West and why?
I'm going LSU for the same reason. I think they have a really strong quarterback room. Outside of Ole Miss, I think they have one of the top 3 quarterback rooms in the conference. Ole Miss, I think they not to jump too far down the list, but they decided you know how the old school like commercials where it's like, hey, collect them all.
Yeah.
I think they took that to heart with quarterbacks, but I think if something were to happen to Jaden Daniels, I think Nussmeier could come in and do just as good for different reasons. But they've got players all over the place. Jalen Neighbors is going to be a special weapon for LSU. I think they've always got good offensive lines. I think up front they're starting to get they're continuing their LSU ways. I think Brian Kelly has done a really, really good job of just kind of getting things settled after that Florida State loss a year ago because it was starting to go south. And he's really, really done a good job of rallying the troops. So I like LSU. I haven't used this word all season, but the culture down there is really, really good. As much as we make fun of,
Would you say
Brian
it's kind
Kelly,
of maybe a family atmosphere?
it's definitely a family atmosphere. And he's definitely become welcome down there. So I think he's done a good job. I think he did a great job in year one. They were competitive. Well, they won the West, obviously, but they were competitive in the SEC championship. And so I think they can challenge Alabama again this year. And the reason is, Matt, I think you and I share the chief concerns for the quarterback position.
We do. We do. And I think I don't want to tread too much here on Josh's, but I mean, it's Alabama and LSU. And so I'm actually going to take the counterpoint because I'm actually taking Alabama this year, despite the quarterback situation. And that's because I still don't trust Brian Kelly to win the big game. You look, they won the West, but look at some of
They won the big game to win the West last year.
They won one big game, but then they had some absolute stinkers as well. I mean, they lost to Texas A&M. They had some. I still don't entirely trust Brian Kelly. I think that Alabama is stronger on the offensive line. I think Alabama is much stronger in the secondary and the back half of the defense. They have Dallas Turner, who I'll spoil it now. That's going to be my pick for Defensive Player of the Year in the SEC.
He's going to be pretty good.
He's an absolute beast. They have arguably the best tackle in the country in J.C. Latham. And even if I'm personally hoping that Jalen Milroe ends up being the quarterback and they just run the ball a crap ton because they have the hosses up front to be another very, very dominant offensive line.
It's gonna be murder ball. They're gonna have to figure that out.
They're gonna have to, because I don't think that Milroe, Ty Simpson, or the Notre Dame transfer from at quarterback, I don't think any of those guys are going to be world beaters.
Matt, I think they're going to try to shoehorn Ty Simpson in. I think Saban likes Ty Simpson. He sees him as his A.J. McCarron, and they're going to completely overlook Jalen Milroe. I don't think Saban wants Jalen Milroe to be his quarterback because he's scared of what Jalen Milroe actually is.
But which is weird to me because I see Jalen Milroe being Jalen.
I love Jalen.
I think Jalen Milroe is Jalen Hurts light. Personally,
I think so too. I don't know if he's helped himself by like not proving that he can handle playing quarterback, and that's probably a chief concern as well. Like, why hasn't Jalen Milroe taken the job by the horns over these other two yet? Like, you have to take that in consideration. If he's good, he would have taken this job by now, and so they're all just kind of and I don't know that Tommy Rees can win with at quarterback and at wide receiver.
I think I guess my counterpoint is that I think that once again Alabama's defense is going to be absolutely lights out, absolutely lights out. And they have an offensive line that's going to keep whoever's back there upright. And so
they're just
going
to have to figure out how to win murder ball again.
At the end of the day,
they're going back to 2010.
I'm gonna ride with Saban one more time. So I'm gonna take Alabama over LSU in the West.
All right, I like it. Well, Coach mentioned the quarterback room at my third place team. Ole Miss, and
I would love to pick this team to win the West. I really would. Like that. Like in my heart, it's Ole Miss. Ole Miss is number one in the West in my heart.
So much fun. They're so much fun. And Josh, They're fun. Yeah, go ahead.
They are fun. So Coach kind of alluded to it. They hit the transfer portal hard. They might have won the transfer portal award for the SEC this year. They got a whole bunch of new faces, including 2 quarterbacks. They pick up Spencer Sanders from Okie State and Walker Howard over there from LSU. They still have last year's starter Jackson Dart,
who is QB1.
Yeah, so those transfers were meant to kind of push him, elevate his game. I think
Walker Howard's the future of that position.
Yeah. I think lost in the shuffle last year is the Rebels started out 7-0 before their second half fade. I got to be honest, though, a little bit of this pick factors into who's behind them. I've got some real concerns about the team that I have coming up in a little bit. But Coach, I want to ask you this before we move on. Do you think Joey Freshwater could get his Rebels looking like that 7-0 team, or are they going to look a little bit more like that 1-5 club that finished the year?
I think part of the 1-5 finish had to do with a situation at Auburn, where when they were looking for coaches, he was going at the job, or they were coming at him hard, right? And it was a distraction, and he kind of just. Some things happen, and I think Mr. Freshwater just was like, okay, screw it. I'm just going to play this game like a 9-year-old playing Madden. And so the 7-0 team, I think, is probably more so what you're going to get with them. Jackson Dart has really been, I think, second year in this offense, coming over from an air raid system. I think he's really kind of honed in on the RPO game, which is a huge chunk of what makes this Lane Kiffin offense so good. I think year 2 of Quinshon Judkins, who I think, for my money, is the best running back in the league. I think that's going to be a huge help. I think having a defense that, even if they finish top 40 on defense, I think they can be
doable.
They finished like 80th or something like that in defense. So, it can only really improve. So they've got weapons, man. And they've got some things going on. So I think they're going to be pretty good. Are they as good as Alabama and LSU? Probably not quite there yet, because I think the talent up front for both of those clubs are just night and day above anything else in the West. But I think they're going to make life difficult.
Yeah, you mentioned Quinshon Judkins, and that was the one note I wanted to add there. Judkins is the best running back in the SEC. And
for sure.
He, again, I'll ruin my other pick. He's my offensive player of the year for the SEC this year. And
we agree on one thing.
Yeah. And so I think that they are going to ride him hard, and he is going to put up some ridiculous numbers.
Matt, this is a family show.
All right, let's go to with a 4-hole. And there's a team that I really do not trust.
4, 5, and 6 are just.
So I'm picking.
It's just a blob.
Josh,
I don't think it matters how you remember these.
Are you bearing the lead?
I'm picking Arkansas.
You're not bearing the lead, actually. You're not bearing the lead by picking Arkansas 4th.
So this pick is all about a quarterback that I love. I love KJ Jefferson.
I do too. But here's the thing, Josh, and Matt. Before you go, I know you're about to ask Matt. I just don't like KJ Jefferson going from Kendall Briles to Dan Enos. I just don't like that.
True. That is true.
I do not like that. I love KJ Jefferson. Yeah. I think you're going to see a way different KJ Jefferson. Kendall Briles just had the magic touch with him, and just kind of knew how to utilize him to hit the tip top of his talent. So I'm hoping for KJ Jefferson's sake that Dan Enos can do that.
Yeah, well, for me, I love KJ Jefferson, but also alluding to the team that I'm so concerned about, they don't have someone that team hired. So, Matt, I wanted to ask you this. They did used to have him. Matt, you and I all of us really liked Arkansas, but it seemed like last year, especially, you and I had a very soft spot for these Hogs. How can they assert themselves?
I love Boss Hog.
How can they assert themselves to get to maybe like 8-9 wins?
Well, so they have 3 really, really, really tough road games. And that's their problem, right?
Yeah.
Because they're at LSU, they're at Alabama, and they're at Ole Miss.
And they have a neutral site with A&M.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and
When Ole Miss is your most winnable game, that's of those three. That's
and so that's what concerned me is the schedule. None of those games that they would need an upset win are at home, right? And so they might be able to, pick off, like, I think that Mississippi State game that they have at home, that's going to be like a good tussle, I think. They should be able to take care of business at home against like Auburn and Missouri. At Florida isn't, we all don't, no one thinks that Florida is a world beater, but that schedule is not doing them any favors. And so if they have even one hiccup at home, like it's going to
still
be
an
tough.
SEC schedule.
It's still it's and those road games, man, like the road games against the three top teams in the division, it's going to be really difficult. They've also got BYU, and you can never count out BYU.
Big 12 powerhouse.
Yeah, in the Big 12 now. So I am not. I love Sam Pittman. I don't think there's any of us who has a bad word to say about Sam Pittman on this program, but I don't foresee. And again, Raheem Sanders, who we haven't mentioned yet, a phenomenal tailback to go with.
Second best running back in the league.
Yeah, second best running back in the league right there, right? And so you put Jefferson and Sanders together, that might be the best 1-2 combo in any backfield. They're always going to have a good offensive line, but I don't think they don't have the skill guys on the outside, and they don't have the depth on the defense or the edge rushers to really get after the quarterback when they need to. And so because of that, I think, fourth is the right spot for this team.
All right, let's get to it. I put A&M fifth, and
talent-wise,
that's the thing. Yeah,
really good.
Gobs of talent, but then I look at the coaching staff, and it makes me worried. So I'm putting Ole Miss.
It makes me want to hire a bodyguard or like a personal injury attorney or something.
No, a film crew. I want to hire the Bravo film, the number one Bravo film crew, and send them to Texas.
It might as well be like real coordinators of College Station. Like,
yeah.
So you got the name.
Yep.
And let's capitalize on that, Matt.
Yeah.
Real
so let's run through it. I got Ole Miss above them because I think by this point Kiffin is officially a better coach than Jimbo. Yeah, Jimbo's got a natty, but what have you done for me lately? I'm putting Arkansas over this team because they don't have to worry about Bobby Petrino. And this is a really roundabout way of saying that Bobby Petrino and Jimbo go together horribly. So I came up with 3 scenarios. I'm going to give you each of the scenario, and then I'm going to let each of you pick which one you think happens. So scenario number 1, I call it the Jimbo tyrant. He treats Bobby the exact same way he's treated all of his other recent offensive coordinators, which basically means he does not let them do their job. He meddles with everything. And because he doesn't really know much about offense anymore, the offense blows, just like we saw last year. So that's scenario number 1. Scenario number 2, I call it the Machiavellian Bobby Petrino. Bobby deliberately blows the first half of the season playing some 3D chess. He gets Jimbo Fisher fired, and then Bobby gets to end as the interim coach. And magically, the offense suddenly looks a lot better. Scenario 3, Bobby doesn't even make it to the end of the season because he is either left in the middle of the night for a new job or he's out there sleeping around and cruising on his Harley. So, gentlemen, which of these 3 scenarios do you see playing out?
I see number 4, all of the above.
Well, then in that case, I see number 5. And we have a couple of mysterious deaths because DJ Durkin's lingering around.
Oh yeah, I like that. I like that when
he was on staff.
I know. I like that when you have a coach that killed someone. That's kind of the oh yeah moment. Yeah, this A&M thing, it's going to be a mess. All right, let's move to Mississippi State. They have an absolutely awesome linebacker group there with Jet Johnson, Nathaniel Watson, but they have a first-time head coach. And they're moving away from the air raid. I'm also not sure about the headspace of the players because, like, when I think about my own self, I never knew Mike Leach. I never met him. But his death was just so jarring and sudden that when I think of Mike Leach, I still sometimes even get sad about it. And this is just as a football fan, not a player for him. So, Matt, I'm kind of curious. Do you think that MSU should have tried to keep more of the Leach play calling philosophy? Or do you kind of like how they're turning the page and honoring him culturally with some of the Pirate branding, but not necessarily through style of play?
So I think that's an interesting question, Josh, because you still have Will Rogers, who is a very experienced quarterback, and asking him to change after 3 seasons in, setting a lot of Mississippi State records behind center, in that air raid system, and bringing something new is a bit of a question. But at the same time, I think Will Rogers is an outstanding leader, and everything I understand and have read about Zach Arnett have been, universally positive about the person he is and the way that they are culturally, like you said, keeping the pirate flag flying, if you will.
Yeah.
And so they had to make the best hire they can make given the circumstances, and that's not easy. I don't think that it was going to be super easy to find an air raid offensive coordinator, from at that point in the coaching calendar, the coaching cycle, right? Because most of the offensive coordinators and, position coaches that were going to be promoted to offensive coordinators had pretty much been snatched up. So I think that they did the best with what they had. And I think that I think it's Kevin Barbe is their new offensive coordinator. Now he comes over from App State, but he's been around and he's seen a lot of football. And I don't think it's going to be as stark a contrast as some people think. I think that they will end up being fine. And I like Mississippi State more than Texas A&M this year, personally. I think they have enough talent left on the roster.
They have better culture.
They have better culture. And I think that, and I think
less of a cult.
Yes. Yeah. They don't put the cult in cultures.
Well, I don't know about that. Mississippi State's kind of a cult.
Yeah, but not nearly as much of a cult as Texas A&M is. I mean, it's one thing to have cowbells. It's another thing to have,
pretend military.
A pretend military. Exactly. So, give me Mississippi State over the Aggies this year.
All right, and congratulations. Go ahead, Coach. I'm sorry.
Whoa! I got something to say about Mississippi. I think the tough part about Mississippi State is they have a brutal stretch of games, and I think you're not going to get a fair representation of what Zach Arnett can actually do because of the difficulty of his schedule and some of the changes they're making schematically, especially on offense. There's going to be an adjustment period, and unfortunately, a lot of people are going to think that he's a lot worse than he actually is. I think he's doing a great job. I think Barbe, or however you pronounce his name, watching his offenses at App State, I think he's going to be really, really good. I just think there's going to be a cycle or two to get some of those guys that can play more in that type of system, which is a power spread RPO system versus the straight air raid. So it's going to be a shift.
Yeah. All right. And dead last is congratulations, Auburn. You've done it. We are evoking the Baylor clause of our podcasting. We do not discuss teams with repugnant hires. I hope they lose every game, and I'm assuming both my co-hosts feel the same way.
I just wish they had given Cadillac the job. If they had Cadillac,
it would have been more fun.
It would have been more fun. It would have been better for everyone. Yeah. But instead, they went with
anybody. But
yeah.
All right. Some accolade times. I think we all have the dogs. We just have them over different opponents.
Yeah.
My offensive MVP. I know it probably won't happen, but I love the idea of a tight end. So I'm going to go with Brock Bowers.
I desperately want that to happen. I just don't think he's going to get the volume to make that happen.
So I've got Quinshon Judkins.
Yeah, same. Yeah. I think Quinshon is unequivocally the best player in the conference, not named Brock Bowers, that's going to get enough volume to actually win that.
Yeah. Perfect. All right, my defensive MVP. Coach, you sold me the other night. Michael Williams.
He's going to be a good one.
I'll take Dallas Turner.
I'm going to have to agree with Matt here. I think Dallas Turner is going to be the best one in the league. I think he's gonna. Honestly, they're just kind of the way both of these guys play and kind of how they use them. I think Dallas Turner is going to be put in more positions to affect the game from different spots than Michael Williams is.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. My coach of the year, if you're going to win the conference yet again and get to the playoffs yet again, how can you not go with Kirby?
Yeah.
I've got Vandy making a bowl game and Clark Lee winning the coach of the year by going 6-6.
I think if it's not Kirby, it's got to be either. I think it's got to be either Mark Stoops or Clark Lee, depending on how. Like if Kentucky can finish second in the East, I think you got to make a case for Mark Stoops.
Only way that doesn't happen also is if the Ole Miss offense is as good as we think it can be, and Lane is able to get Ole Miss. If Ole Miss makes the title game, it'll be Lane Kiffin.
There we go.
Yeah, as it should be.
My newcomer, I think this was going to be unanimous. Devin Leary for Kentucky,
without a doubt.
Yeah.
I think our first fire might also be unanimous. Jimbo.
Yeah, unless he who shall not be named gets caught using cell phones for the wrong thing again.
Hell.
I think, just for sake of time, I think they're going to have to work out Jimbo's buyout because it's rather large still.
Well, based on reports coming out of SMU, some SMU boosters could just loan A&M money. They evidently have like $200 billion and basically told the ACC, yeah, we don't need any TV money. We'll fund this.
Yeah.
I didn't know SMU had that much money. Good for them. You'd think they would have had a nicer football stadium.
Yeah. Well, death penalty kind of ruined that. But I think just by sheer logistics, I think Eli Drinkwitz is going to be the first fire just because they report it first.
All right.
Final thoughts wrapping up the SEC. Either of you think Alabama and LSU can join Georgia in the playoffs despite losing to them in the title game?
I don't think you're going to get two SEC teams in.
No, because I think both of those teams will end up with 2 losses.
I like it. All right. Well, if you need a break from college football, now's a good time to take it because if you're going to stick with us, we're going to immediately jump into the Fun Belt, everybody.
Let's do it.
We ready?
Let's burn.
Our Sun Belt.
Take 5.
There we go. All right, let's get to our beloved Sun Belt, and they lived up to their Fun Belt moniker last year. Coastal edged James Madison, although we'll talk about James Madison getting screwed over by the NCAA, and Marshall in the highly competitive East. Troy slipped past South Alabama to win the West. Troy then knocked off Coastal. Then in the bowl game, they upset our beloved Roadrunners. So they went 12-2. They finished nationally ranked a season ago. No conference realignment to talk about. Sunbelt was pretty active with this a year ago. All the new member teams, the Sunbelt added, Marshall, Old Dominion, Southern Miss. They were full members a year ago. Nothing's changed with that. James Madison is the weird one. They are still on that absolutely idiotic, stupid, dumb NCAA probation rule where you change football divisions. So they did not get to go to the title game last year or a bowl game. And James Madison is still impacted by that garbage rule for this season. It's absolutely idiotic. Let the Monarchs fly, NCAA. So my 5 questions. Number 1, can Troy rewind it and maybe finish the year ranked again?
Maybe.
It's definitely maybe.
All right. Maybe. South Alabama. They are Troy's biggest competition by far.
Okay. We're gonna explore this.
Can the Jags do the thing? Are they going to be the ones?
We're going to explore it.
We'll explore that.
Will. Coastal. They lost their coach, but not that quarterback of theirs. What does that mean for Tim Beck's first season run in the Chanticleers?
It's going to be fun.
Yeah. 4, going to Texas, going to San Marcos, Texas. Can the Texas State Bobcats lead the league in scoring? And 5th and final question for this league. Why is the NCAA such an asshole to James
Because
Madison?
I will answer that question right now. Because
they can't beat Alabama.
Because if the NCAA has an opportunity to shoot itself in the foot, or if the NCAA has an opportunity to do something that everyone would like, They will not do the thing that everyone thinks is right, and they will shoot themselves in the foot every time
Fair
without
enough.
fail.
All right, we're going east to west again. I got Coastal Carolina winning the East, as I just alluded to. Grayson McCall, that outstanding quarterback, he's back to run things for new head coach Tim Beck. McCall is also joined by an absurd amount of talent in that skill position set. The D, however, they cost them a title last year because it wasn't a very good defense, and that very well could be their downfall again this year. But the schedule sets up extremely nicely for them to return to the title game. All of their tough league games are at home. Their toughest league games are at home. They also avoid both Troy and South Alabama as crossovers. Coach, you're an offensive coordinator.
I was.
You will be again very soon.
Yeah.
How does Tim Beck resist that temptation to throw out everything from Coastal's playbook and just let that amazing offense he inherited cook?
When he goes to practice every day and realizes they're humming along, and Grayson McCall is actually running the offense himself. So, yeah, I think every day he goes, oh, yeah, I forgot.
Simple solution.
Simple solution. Yeah. I will say, I think their defense is going to get better for one reason.
Because they can't get worse.
Because they can't get worse.
2 reasons. They can't get worse. And my boy Colin Wilder is a GA there on the defensive side. He's going to bring some grit.
Love it. Second place, I'm heading up to Virginia. We're going to the Commonwealth. I'm going to James Madison. They led the league in scoring offense last year with 2 very talented running backs behind a line that, Matt, I know you're going to love this fact. James Madison returns all 5 starting offensive linemen. I think they can do a lot of damage again offensively. They do lose their top wide receivers from last year and their quarterback, but they picked up from the transfer portal Jordan McLeod, and he's going to battle Alonzo Barnett III, who was already on the roster in camp, to find that new starting quarterback. They also have 6 starters back from defense. That was fairly stingy last year. Matt, 5 starters back on the offensive line. You played that position back in the day. How much of a safety blanket is that for whoever ends up winning the starting quarterback job?
Well, especially considering how much they like to run the ball, that's huge. Like, if they're going to lean on the ground game even more, Josh, they have veteran, experienced running backs who are good players. I don't expect a lot of hiccups. Maybe their percentage moves from 55-45 throwing to 58-42 or something like that. But I think that this is an offense that will keep humming along without a problem.
Nice. All right, we're going to go from the Commonwealth due west. We're going to hit up Marshall there in West Virginia.
We are.
They have 2 highly encouraging things going for them. Both of those are on offense. And they have 2 highly discouraging things that could basically ruin all the awesome effort of the offense. So let's start with the positives. Their quarterback, Cam Fancher, really developed last year when the Herd went on that 6-1 streak in the second half of the season. They also get back running back Rasheen Ali. He is healthy. Mm-hmm. Back in 2021, he rushed for 1,400 yards, but he was greatly limited due to injury last season. The negatives: Marshall's outstanding defense from last year returns just 3 starters. Things out on that side of the ball. They also have a brand new defensive coordinator. The other thing bringing them down is their schedule is hell. They travel to Appalachian State, they travel to Coastal, and they travel to South Alabama. Coach, I think Marshall has the ability to contend for the division, but my worries about that defense and that schedule lead me to putting them down at 3rd. Am I doing the right thing, or do you think Marshall can actually crack the division?
I mean, I think for right now you are. I mean, I think preseason, when you look at the schedule, it is not easy. A lot of their big games are on the road, especially the biggest one against conference contender Coastal Carolina at the tail end of October. So I think it's the start of a brutal run of 3 road games against Appalachian State and South Alabama, who is much, much improved. That defense, I think they're going to have their work cut out for them, but I'm going to butcher this name though. Taekweze Legs, a defensive tackle. I think he's going to have to come up huge, literally and figuratively, if they're going to be good. He made 56 tackles in his first 2 seasons, had 3 sacks. They're going to have to do much better against the run. And just overall, I think also they get a transfer in from App State, Keyshawn Brown at linebacker. That should help as well. So they're kind of doing the right things to kind of get pieces in. It's just a matter of if they can get those pieces to gel. But going back to their schedule, if you look at who they play, all right, early on, I think you have, you got Albany, you're at East Carolina, you play Virginia Tech, Old Dominion, at NC State. Again, not overly easy. Don't know much about East Carolina. Virginia Tech.
I might pick Marshall over Virginia Tech.
I would be inclined to. They have an early bye week before Virginia Tech too. So Old Dominion's much good. Improved, but they're not good. At NC State, well, that's an L. Georgia State, that's a toss up. James Madison, it's a toss up. I mean, I think I think they have a good chance of winning most of their games before they get to October 28th, where they go Coastal, at App State, before they split that 4-game stretch, 3 road games with a home game against Georgia Southern, which is also not an overly easy game either. So they got a brutal finish to the season. Yeah. So let's see if they can finish it out. But I mean, the over/under, they were 9-4 last year. The predictions are about 6-6, 7-5. I think they can finish with 8, possibly.
I like that. All right, 4th place, I got Appalachian State. And despite me slotting them in this 4th hole, they have the chops to really contend for this tight division. I think 1 through 4 all have compelling cases to win the division. They have one of the best lines in the conference. They have an explosive tailback in Nate Noel. And their defense is a unique blend. They lost key starters at all the levels of the defense, but they kind of balance that out by returning at least one key starter from each level of the defense. For them to compete, though, they need to have their new offensive coordinator, Frank Ponce, and whoever wins the quarterback battle in camp to click right away. Matt, got a question for you. Both Coastal and Marshall have to travel to Boone. Do the Mountaineers emerge from this clustered division thanks to that home slate?
No, I still think Coastal has too much talent.
Fair enough. All right, let's go to the 5 hole. I got Georgia Southern. The Eagles, they have one of the best skill
Screaming
Eagles. The Screaming Eagles. They have one of the best skill position groups in the entire league, with running back Jalen White and receivers Derwin Burgess and Khalib Hood. But they need transfer quarterback Davis Brin to match what they got out of their quarterback last year. And the defense, it gave up 230 rushing yards and 32 points a game last year.
It was rough.
Yeah, they need to improve there. Coach, I have the top 4 all with a legitimate chance to take the division, with the Eagles just a step down. What can they do to change that prediction and crack the upper echelon?
Well, I think Davis Brin has to come in and put up big numbers offensively, like they should. They have the wide receivers, Caleb Hood and Derwin Burgess, to help them, in tight end Keaton Upshaw, a transfer from Kentucky. Those are some key weapons in the pass game. I think offensive line is going to be solid, not great, but solid. Gerald Green, he left, but Jalen White is back after. And OJ Arnold, I think, could be a good 1-2 punch for the Eagles. I think they can score a lot of points. The question is, if they want to get into the upper echelon, defensively, especially up front, they have to get better. They were horrid against the run. They couldn't pressure the passer, and their secondary suffered because of it. But they have the linebacking core should be a lot better this year. You have Marquise Watson Trent, and Kadri Jackson. They will probably have all the tackles for the defense. You get a transfer from Texas A&M and Terry and Lee, and Devin Gilmore coming in from Wingate will also help bolster that unit. So again, like Marshall, they've added a few pieces to help improve that unit. And I think if they can win that late game against Marshall, that'll give them a chance, especially with their schedule early on. I think that could give them a chance. I mean, they have the Citadel, they have UAB, they're at Wisconsin, which that'll
Not easy.
that'll be a blemish. At Ball State, and then their first true test. Their first true test. Wisconsin. I don't really count Wisconsin as that because that's a fundraiser game. But their first true test is Coastal Carolina. They host Coastal Carolina in the Borough. They're at James Madison, which is those are but separated with a bye on October 7th, and then they host Louisiana Monroe, they host Georgia State, they're at Texas State, at Marshall, host Old Dominion, and they're at Appalachian State. So most of their tough games are at home in the Borough, so that's something that's going in their favor. So the prediction says 5-7. I think if their defense can even improve by 20-25%, I think that'll be probably closer to a 6-6, 7-5 type record. They could win some of these swing games, and I think they can set themselves up if they can continue if they can be consistent with their production offensively and stop people a little bit more frequently than they did last year.
Nice. We're going to stay in the state of Georgia, and we're going to go to number 6, Georgia State. They were kind of building something. They had some back-to-back bowl appearances, but then slid to 4-8 last year. But they return an outstanding quarterback in Darren Granger. But unfortunately, he has just one starter on the offensive line back to protect him. And the defense is experienced, but it also was not particularly good last year. So, Matt, I'm curious, do you think the Panthers will see enough growth on their defense to get back to sniffing a bowl, or are they going to continue kind of last year's play where they slid to that 4-8 mark?
I don't see a whole lot of progression year over year. If they want to improve the offense, they just need to grab their dean of students, former Wisconsin tailback Anthony Davis is the dean of students at Georgia State. And so if they need a little extra punch out of the backfield, why not get a 4-time 1,000-yard rusher?
I will say I absolutely am just itching to get to a game there. I want to see their transformation of Turner Field.
I mean, I think we could we could make a little show reunion down there.
There we go.
Yeah, they play all the Georgia high school state title games at Georgia State now.
That's pretty cool. In the 7 hole, I got Old Dominion. They have an outstanding defensive player. They have Josh Henderson. He is one of the best defensive talents in this league. But the offense basically lost every key player to the transfer portal. They did hire, though, a really interesting offensive coordinator. Kevin Decker is the new play caller, and his offenses down at the FCS level at Fordham were absolutely amazing. Coach, you've done a little bit of coordinating back in your time with the Hilltoppers. Tell us about Decker's scheme.
The last 6 years. Yeah, so I've been kind of I've never been a true air raid or true anything system. I've always been kind of a mashup type person. But when I would see clips and study some things that Fordham has done, I really – some of the accounts that I follow, they clip up, and Fordham ends up in a lot of these clips. And so what I really love about this Fordham offense, and maybe Mississippi State should have hired this guy as their offensive coordinator, because he's kind of like a inside zone RPO iteration of the air raid, and it would have kind of been the best of both worlds for what Will Rogers is good at. But in actuality, they're pretty explosive, man. And watching Fordham, they throw a lot of quick game. They take shots, and they create these shots by playing games with the defense and they really kind of play games with the safeties and try to make those guys and put those guys in constant conflict. And they do a really good job of that, not only stretching them vertically, but also stretching them horizontally. And so they use the key principle of the air raid scheme, which is every blade, you have to defend every blade of grass, 53.5 yards wide. And so they take that to heart. They do good enough. They do just good enough running. I think they have some things with the RPO that makes their run game effective. Whereas that's kind of where Mike Leach's weak spot was in the run game. If he would have employed some of this stuff, I think his offenses could have been even more explosive. But I don't know that having him alone will fix a lot of Old Dominion's issues. I think Old Dominion will be better on offense. I think they'll be more potent, but I don't know if that's going to be enough to get him out of the 7 hole. But I really like this hire. I really like what Decker can do as a coordinator.
Nice. Let's head over to the West. The West probably has the 2 single best teams in the entire conference. Troy, South Alabama, pick 1. They're probably going to win the conference. I'm going with Troy. The defense was amazing last year, and that's kind of the reason why. They returned several key pieces, including my foreshadowing defensive MVP for the Sun Belt. I think the offense
DeMarcus Ware.
I think the offense will also be improved. Their quarterback, Gunnar Watson, but I think he's going to continue to develop nicely. They also have a 1,000-yard rusher back in Kamani Vidal. Matt, got a question for you. Troy, they travel to the Little Apple to take on 16th ranked Kansas State in week 2. What percentage do you give the Trojans to pull off the upset? And I want you to also give me 2 keys for Troy to somehow pull off that upset.
Okay. It's all about the defense. Kansas State will be bringing some new skill players, but Kansas State
catching them early.
Yeah, they're catching them early, so they're hoping that they're able to do something there. But it's going to be tough because Kansas State offensive line is one of the best in the country, and so it is going to be physical. Very, very difficult for them to do that. So because of that, I'm not giving them a huge chance, even though I love the defense. Their defense matches up with Kansas State's biggest strength, the offensive line. And so because of that, I'll give them better than a puncher's chance. I'll give them, let's say, 12.5%, 1 in 8 chance.
I like that. That's actually a little bit higher than I was expecting you to do. For 2, I got the Jags. South Alabama was awesome last year. They won 10 games. The Jags also have 10 starters back on a very, very, very stingy defense.
I love that.
They also got 2021 standout safety Keith Gallman back. He missed all of last year due to injury. They have a terrific quarterback, Carter Bradley. They have a solid running back in LaDainian Webb to lead that offense. But, and this is why I'm picking Troy, they lost some key offensive linemen, and their schedule is brutal. They travel to Troy. They travel to James Madison. They also have a crossover with Marshall. And then in the non-conference, they travel to Oklahoma State and Tulane. Coach, I'm curious, how much do coaches really know about their schedule difficulty this time of year? Or are they just so focused on getting their team ready that it's something pundits care about? We talk about schedule strength all the time, but do coaches actually care?
Well, if you were to sit in on a coach's conversation when they're talking about schedule, they think every game is the hardest game in the world.
Lou Holtz certainly did.
Yeah, they think they're going to, like, it coaches the way we talk to each other. We think we're going to lose every game, so we prepare as if we're going to lose every game. So, like, we have to make sure we, take that hyperbole and apply it properly to get our teams ready. So if you were to ask South Alabama's head coach or anybody on their staff, they'd be like, yeah, our schedule's awful. And then if you ask anybody at Troy, they're going to say our schedule is awful. You ask Kirby Smart, yeah, our schedule's awful. You ask anybody, you catch my drift here.
Brian Ferentz said Iowa's schedule is really easy.
Yeah, of course. That's why he's Brian Ferentz. That's probably why they're not any good, because they just sit back and he's recording outside zone clinics versus preparing for his actual schedule. But I mean, from our point of view, from the 30,000-foot point of view, yeah, their schedule's rough. Key road games, key games are on the road. That's never easy, but then again, once the pads start popping, you start playing football, it just becomes football at that point. So maybe we put a little too much emphasis on home field sometimes. Sometimes it actually does work, but and I think at this level, I don't think home field is as much of an advantage as it would be like in the Big Ten or the SEC.
All right, let's head to my third spot. I got Southern Miss, and here's a name that should sound familiar: Frank Gore Jr. He is back. He had 1,500 yards from scrimmage last year, and if their transfer quarterback Billy Wiles pans out, the Eagles should be vastly improved on offense compared to last year. They also have 6 starters back from a defense that was also pretty solid last year. Matt, Troy and South Alabama are everyone's pick to win the division.
Picking Troy. I'm picking South Alabama, by the way.
Well, I said Troy and South Alabama. They're everyone's.
I'm picking South Alabama to win the division.
To win the division and also win the league overall. What needs to go right for the Eagles to play spoiler and steal this division?
For the mustard buzzards, it all goes down to Frank Gore Jr., baby. If he can rush for 1,800 yards, which I don't think is out of the question. He's my offensive player of the year in the conference. I think that, they have as good a chance to win some lower scoring games, old school ball control, and just getting it after it that way. So yeah, it's not I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility for it to happen, but I don't think they have the defense, especially that Troy does. So I would still take Troy, but I think they have I think that Southern Miss has a better chance of winning the West than Troy does beating Kansas State.
Yeah. I think with Southern Miss, they fall apart too much for my liking. I think you see some games where you can tell that they're just Frank Gore is their hope and savior. And they you see him late in games sometimes. I mean, he is just freaking gassed. He's rushed for 150 yards and they're just
on 38 carries.
On 38 carries, and their defense is just struggling over there. And they just give up big play after big play, and you can see the life just come out of Frank Gore's. You're just like, ugh. You just feel so bad for him because you're just like, God, he just rushed for like 160 and 3 touchdowns, and they're going to lose this game. Like that kind of stuff happens with them.
All right. Well, this division has a clear, massive gulf between 1, 2, 3, and then 4, 5, 6, 7. So to pick through the bottom of this order, it was kind of hard, and I settled on Texas State. Weirdly, finishing 4th, and the reason for it is all about their offense. They hired a brand new coach. They got a new coach. His name is G.J. Kinney, and he oversaw Incarnate Word. And if you saw any of Incarnate Word last year,
they were pretty good.
It was redonkulous. That's what their offense was.
Pretty good.
And he's bringing it here to the belt. Malik Hornsby and TJ Finney, they both transferred in, one from Arkansas, one from Auburn.
Finley.
To compete for this quarterback job to run the offense. They have a decent skill position group, but 0 starters from the offensive line are back, and just 3 starters back on defense. Coach, you covered these 2 transfers a little bit with your work on the SEC. Mm-hmm. What do the Bobcats get with these 2?
Well, they better hope that they're getting TJ Finley as a backup, because as a starter, he was terrible. He was downright terrible at Auburn. He got replaced by Robbie Ashford, who struggled with this thing called the forward pass. Malik Hornsby, on the other hand, I really kind of like him at Arkansas. I think had he not just run into the same offense with KJ Jefferson, I think he could have been something special. Had some tough luck, just had some struggles there. But I think getting Malik Hornsby with the talent that he has, both with his legs and some of his arm talent, I don't know much about his accuracy and just his overall ability to play quarterback, because I don't think he got much of a chance to do so. But when you put him into an offense like you saw the scheme, like you saw at Incarnate Word with G.J. Keene, I think he can do some special things with him. And he's going to do it with duct tape and bubble gum with this first year, because the roster looks brutal. The roster looks rough. But I think if there's somebody that can make something out of nothing, it's Kenny with with Texas State. And I think if Malik Hornsby's your QB1, you're going to be in pretty good shape. Are you going to be in as good a shape as somebody else? Probably not. But of those two, I think Malik Hornsby is your best option.
There we go. Okay, heading down to Louisiana. I got the Raging Cajun 5th. Their schedule is super easy. But this team was hit by the transfer portal about as bad as anyone. They lost tons of key players. They are really thin now in terms of depth. If an injury bug hits this team, they are screwed. On paper, their talent is better than Texas State, but the depth really worries me. They also just very late here in the spring transfer portal, very late in the process, they had 2 other players leave their defense, which means that the defensive side of the ball has just 2 starters back from last season. Matt, this coaching staff has completed just 1 season and now just 1 full off season. And they seem to be losing a lot of players. Is this a massive red flag to you, or is it just the new staff continuing to shape the roster to their liking?
Is it allowed to be both?
I think it's allowed to be both. If that's how you want to answer it.
I think I'm going to go with both because I think that I think both things can be true at the same time.
Fair enough. 6th place, we're weirdly going to stay in Louisiana. I think most people would put ULM 7th, and I did originally, but then I changed it once I crunched some numbers on Arkansas State. So let's talk about the Warhawks down there at ULM. They have a nice transfer potentially with Ole Miss running back Isaiah Woolard. He's at least an intriguing talent for them to get. Their leading wide receiver last year, Tyrone Howell, was really good. He's one of the best receivers in the league despite playing at ULM. We know that Terry Bowden still knows how to coach. And the defense was, dreadful last year. They just have one direction they can go, and that's better. They also have 4 starters back on defense to try and fix that. Coach, another SEC transfer. What can you tell us about Woolard?
Well, Woolard, unfortunately, Woolard caused Ole Miss to go into the transfer portal to get Zach Evans, and I think there were some other ones that the names are escaping me. That they got one from SMU. I can't think of his name for some reason, but they had to go the transfer and fill that running back position. So obviously he couldn't cut it at Ole Miss. However, that doesn't mean he can't play, and that doesn't mean he's not going to be good at ULM. He's very talented. He's explosive. He can hit home runs. He did so in high school. I just don't think he got much of a chance, or I don't think he endeared himself too much to the Ole Miss staff while he was there. So it was a tough go for him. So it's a new start, fresh system, new place, new scenery. Maybe this is something that he can capitalize on. I don't know. But I do know that he's physical. I do know that he can hit a home run, and I think he can fit in very, very well at ULM. We'll just see kind of how that all plays out. But I'm excited that he's going to get another crack at this. How Southern Miss didn't try to get him to back up Frank Gore Jr. because this kid's a kid from Hattiesburg, Mississippi, right in their backyard.
Okay, well, ULM's been really bad for a really long time. So when I was starting my notes, I originally put them in 7th, and then I learned about Arkansas State. And I did not realize this, but gentlemen, Butch Jones is just 5-19 at Arkansas State. And they welcome 7 starters back. Not on offense, not on defense. That's it. Their entire team.
Not long ago, they were the perennial favorites to win the league every single year.
Yeah. Just 7 starters. That's so few. It's crazy. Now, in terms of like actual talent, yeah, they might be able to jump ULM or Louisiana or even Texas State. But to do that, you're going to have to rely on an absolute crap ton of transfers panning out. And you're going to be counting on the fact that Butch Jones has regained that magical it quality. So, simple question. It can almost be a yes or no question.
What quality is that?
Yeah. Having it. You know what it is. Like once a coach gets old and loses it, it's gone. So
when did he have it?
I think back at Cincinnati and Central Michigan, he had a little bit of it in him.
We maybe thought he had a little bit of it.
Well, that's my question. Like I said, give me a yes or no. Does Butch Jones have it anymore, or am I fair to pick the Red Bulls last?
Does Butch Jones have that dog in him?
Yeah, does he have it? Coach is a clear, definitive no. Matt, how about you?
Yeah, no. I'm gonna second that.
All right.
I mean, just look at where they are, where they were when he took over. Like, I mean, he's plummeted that program. Yeah. I mean, I'm sure Butch Jones is a great human being. I'm not knocking on him as a human being, but as a professional and his ability to be a head coach of a college football program, not good.
Yeah. Let's do the accolades. I'm taking Troy over Coastal. My offensive MVP between Gore and McCall was really, really tough. I think because Coastal's going to have a better record and the media just knows McCall's name better, I went with McCall again for Coastal. My defensive MVP, I alluded to him earlier as I didn't give the name, but I mentioned it's going to be someone from Troy. TJ Jackson is a phenomenal defensive lineman. He reminded me a little bit of Jadeveon Clowney when he was at South Carolina, with just how much he completely screws up an offense's plan with his play. So I went TJ Jackson there.
High praise.
Yeah. You guys like those picks?
I'm going with Gore on offense, but
which is fair.
Jackson on defense is a good shot.
Yeah. My coach of the year for repeating as champions, I'm going with John Sumrall at Troy.
I'm going to go with Kane Womack because I got South Alabama winning the division.
Womack. South Alabama's so good. Man, 10 wins last year. I wish Troy – see, this is the nice thing about the leagues that have left divisions, because Troy and South Alabama should be the title game, all respect to Coastal.
Well, we don't know that yet. We don't know. We don't know. Coastal could come out like gangbusters. Like, would it really surprise you if Coastal came out and was just?
That's my pick.
Lighting.
I'm picking Coastal. I got Grayson McCall as my offensive player of the year. I've got. I like TJ Jackson at Troy. I don't think there's any one player that stands out at South Alabama. I just think as a unit they're going to be really good. First fired. If it's not Butch Jones. They're doing it wrong. Terry Bowden could possibly get fired if they have a dreadful season as well.
He's actually – they haven't changed yet on their record, but they're more competent. They looked way better last year. We did skip newcomer, though. I think Billy Wiles at Southern Miss is going to pick up the newcomer award for –
I'll take Malik Hornsby.
Yeah, I like Hornsby there. I think he's going to put him.
Yeah, he's a really good fit. Like, he's a really, really good fit for that coach. Like, I like that a lot.
Yeah, I do too. I'm glad he's going to get another chance. I liked him signing at Auburn, not Auburn. I liked him signing at Arkansas. TJ Finley ran out of LSU and ran out of Auburn. So
I'm just worried that as exciting as Texas State is, they're going to give up like 40 sacks.
Yeah, but then
no, I think Hornsby can escape. I think they're going to do enough to not give up that many sacks. I think they're going to be pretty electric offensively for what they have. I mean, relative to what they have. I mean, are they going to put up like USC, Lincoln Riley type numbers or Incarnate Word from last year type numbers? Probably not. But they're going to put up numbers relative to them having like 4 pieces coming back on offense. Like Georgia Tech's going to put up numbers offensively, even though they just named Haynes King quarterback one over there. They're going to put up numbers. Are they going to be able to stop anybody? No. Are they going to give up a ton of sacks?
Yeah,
possibly. They don't have a whole lot of talent over there, but they're going to certainly look more competent. That's for sure. Same with Texas State.
Coach already mentioned the same person that I have for first fired. I think this is going to be unanimous. Butch Jones at Arkansas State,
without a doubt.
Gotta be. I mean, he's probably a pretty good assistant. Probably should be a pretty good assistant. That's okay.
Okay.
That's okay. Just don't give him another head coaching job.
There we go.
All right.
We've done it. All we have left is the
There's
independents
plenty of coordinators out there.
There
and
is.
some more preview stuff next week.
Yeah, we'll talk. I mean, there's a couple week 0 games here, which we'll recap next week. But before we go, I had to get this piece of news out. This came across my desk as we've been recording.
Ooh.
So, Jim Harbaugh has basically on his own reduced his suspension from 4 games to 3 games. During those 3 games, Michigan is going to have 4 different head coaches.
Okay.
Yes, you heard me right. Michigan is going to have 4 head coaches in 3 games. They are having Jesse Minter, the defensive coordinator, as the head coach in the first game. They are
Who's that opponent?
I don't know, like Eastern Michigan or some crap like that.
It's a funny thing to see Michigan's schedule, actually.
Yeah, no, it's it's kind of ridiculous. So here it is. No, so we've got Jesse Minter against East Carolina. Offensive line coach / offensive coordinator Sharon Moore against Bowling Green. And then the UNLV game in the middle. Mike Hart is head coach for one half, and Jay Harbaugh is the coach for the other half. They have not told us which half. Mike Hart is in the second half, Jay Harbaugh in the first half. So there you have it.
That's really nice that he's got time off from the Ravens to coach half of a Michigan UNLV football game.
He must really love his brother.
Nice.
Yeah.
All right. I think we've
done.
I think we've done everything possible in the SEC and the Sun Belt.
Yes, I think that's where we're at, and I think that's where we're going to wrap it up here today. And so we're excited that football.
Let's go New
back.
Mexico State, week 0, baby.
Week 0. Week 0. Take Vandy minus 17.5.
Yep. Over
ridiculous line of the week. The Golden Knights minus 35 against Kent State.
I love the renovations at Vanderbilt. The new look I absolutely love. I think it's very imposing to have a construction motif for your stadium. It's really cool. They did a good job.
It's very Eastern Bloc.
Yeah.
The video board is being held up by cranes.
Yeah.
It's going to be special. Coach and I will be there. We will report back next week.
It's brutalist architecture. It's brilliant.
Yeah, really.
They finished it weeks ago too. That's the most impressive thing.
Only Vandy. You
guys have hard hats for the game?
They should be. They should pass those out. That would be hysterical.
Do we need PPE, Matt, for our seats?
I do have some high res vests. Don't worry. So
do I need to wear my steel toes?
I mean, I think you should wear steel toes in general when you go to that stadium. But
dude, we practiced there yesterday because it's like 105 degrees, and so we practiced indoor. I parked probably less than a block away, and it took me like 30 minutes to get into the indoor because like how the route I had to walk. And like the fact that people were probably the least helpful that they could possibly be. They're like they sent me to like 4 different doors, none of which worked.
Nice.
That's just intimidation factor. I love it. Get that gamemanship
because you really got to intimidate the local high school coaches. That's really what you want to be doing.
That's the goal.
Vanderbilt has pulled a Howard Schnellenberger. They built a wall around Nashville, and they don't want any of those players.
It's the state. It's the state of Nashville, and they're going to let Tennessee get it.
All right. Well, that is going to do it for us here today on the Illegal Motion podcast on the Believe Network, presented by BetOnline.ag and MikeFarrellSports.com. So, on behalf of our own offensive coordinator, the coach, Corey Burton, here in Nashville, Tennessee, and our intrepid blogger from Big Ten and Counting, Josh Cook, up there in Chicago, Illinois, this is Matt Perkins saying so long, and see you next time on the Illegal Motion College Football Podcast.
Hey, Hawkeyes and Cyclones, stop using betonline.ag.
or just stop gambling, Hawkeyes and Cyclones. Just stop. It's not worth it. It's really not.